Without further ado, I would like to introduce our provost, Mike Wick, and we can go ahead and get started. Last thing, just make sure that your microphones are muted as we begin.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today to talk to all of you about what to expect this fall. I have a presentation I'm going to do, share my screen here in a moment, and then we can certainly open it up just for general questions and answers at the end here. So bear with me while I find my screen. All right, Jordan, can you see that? Just making.
Yep, looks good. Looks
okay.
Good.
All right. So just going to go through again and talk about some of the expectations for this fall. I think if I can get my screen to move, there we go. You've probably all seen this reopening, the St. Mary's Way. You know, the St. Mary's Way is a pledge that all members of our community take when they join the college. And I have it displayed on the screen. I won't read it, but the basic idea that we're using today is that as we reopen, we're going to rely on individuals to be responsible for their work and their actions, to have respect, honesty, integrity, and trust, and to have that spirit of caring and that ethic of service to others. The only way we manage to have a safe fall is if we all take responsibility for taking care of one another. So when you see the SMCM reopening the St. Mary's Way, this is what we're talking about, is we're going to do this in a way that has mutual respect, admiration, care as our central themes. So in this part of the talk, I'm just going to go through each of these 5 areas, talk a little bit about what we've been doing in each one. I know that it will generate questions for you, so just hold on to those questions, or if you want to type them in the chat, that's fine. I won't be able to get to them until we finish up the presentation. So let's start with the most important thing, and that's our community's health and safety. As you can imagine, the college has been doing a great deal of preparation. We've gone through our facilities, updated things so that all of our workstations, for instance, are 6 feet apart. We've got plexiglass put up for our large service areas where students and staff will be meeting to deliver services if they wish. Everything will be available remotely. As you can see, we've modified our air handling systems. They've all been checked. We've added filters to make certain that we're doing the best we can on air exchange. We've labeled the campus with directional arrows. This is actually ongoing right now to help students and staff and faculty socially distance as they go through. Every member of our community, faculty, staff, and students will receive a kit when they arrive. That kit will have, sanitizing wipes. It'll have a mask, enough masks for the entire semester, have a digital thermometer, a whole series of things that will help each student take responsibility for the area around them throughout the day. Beyond that, of course, we'll have our normal cleaning routine, but we also have contracted out with a local provider to help us do some deep cleaning. So twice a day, we're going to be going through every public space and deep cleaning it, which generally means using the CDC recommendations and the OSHA recommendations for how we deep clean a space to make certain that it's as safe as possible for all of our community members. Finally, you'll see that little cell phone thing in there. What that represents is we're also using an app daily. There will be an expectation for students to upload their, they'll take this quiz basically through this cell phone service. It's a Qualtrics product, and they'll enter in their temperature. So it's a daily monitoring of their symptoms and their temperature readings. Those will be uploaded into our wellness center, where they'll be monitored by medical staff. And then at the end of that kind of survey, you get a little like barcode thing that says you've been cleared to be active on campus that day. If you fail that, that is also signaled to our wellness center, and that will initiate a process that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So that's kind of the broad stroke. As you can imagine, masks will be required of everyone, all faculty, staff, students. They'll be required in all public spaces. They won't be required in individual offices unless there's someone in that office with you. They also will not be required in the residence halls, but in the rooms, but in the shared areas or outside of your room, you will still be required to wear a mask. You'll also be required to wear that mask while outside. And we'll be trying to emphasize, of course, social distancing throughout our entire physical structure here at the college. I want to talk to you a little bit about the quarantine, and forgive me, I know I'm going to do this during the day. I do a lot of contracts, so I keep typing contract tracing. Forgive me, but I know it says contact here, but I'll slip up, I'm sure. Just thought you'd all be interested in hearing what our process is, right? So we have move-in, right? When you arrive, all students are being asked to arrive having been tested. We understand that for some that will create a hardship, so we will have on-site testing available. But our general mode here is going to be everyone arrives with a negative test. Assuming it is a negative test, of course, you enter into the self-monitoring phase. Every day you are expected to upload all of the results of your survey. And again, those will be monitored by our wellness staff. Each day, if in fact you end up showing symptoms, if you don't, that's great, you just continue self-monitoring. If you do, we will have you get tested then. And again, we can have the testing done, the sample taken here, and then we'll test it with our local public health department as a partnership. So keep in mind that if you arrive and you do not have documentation of a negative test, or you haven't already uploaded that into the system, I believe all students have received that those instructions, then you'll immediately be tested when you arrive on campus. After testing, you quarantine in place, and it's regardless of whether you've already been here and you just developed symptoms or you're arriving without a negative test case. Quarantine in place just means you stay in your assigned room, and you try to minimize the amount of contact with people in your area, as well as contact with the rest of the campus community. Once you've quarantined in place, the test results eventually will come back. Assuming that you don't test positive, you just go back to the self-monitoring, so you've been cleared at that point. If you do test positive, then there's a process we're partnering with the St. Mary's County Health Department. They are in charge of the contact tracing, and it is possible that, of course, someone through that process would be identified, and they will be asked to self-monitor if they've been in contact with someone who tested positive, and then would go through the normal process that you see here. So in addition, we move you from your current residence into an isolation residence wing or hall. And that's done to help remove people who are positive from the overall population, bring them into a place where they can have their own facilities and room. Wellness, of course, will be going into those areas virtually and checking with people, making certain everyone's okay. After 10 days and 3 consecutive days without a fever, as determined by our wellness center, if that's not the case, you just continue to isolate. You've got to go through at least 10 days, and the last 3 have to be without a fever, with no fever reducing medicine. Once you get that, you simply return back to your regular housing. When you're back in your regular housing, you'll go through the self-monitoring process again. So what you see is basically a diagram here explaining the process. There's various branches and so forth, but we have the protocols all in place to help protect every member of our community, to quarantine people when they've been exposed, and to isolate people when in fact we know that they have contracted the virus. And we are partnering every step of the way with our St. Mary's County Health Department. Let's talk a little bit about teaching and learning. It's going to be basically a hybrid situation. All classes are going to be offered through what's called the hybrid approach, or mask to mask and virtually at the same time, so synchronous. So what you would see in a classroom is an instructor with a mask on, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the kind of mask you're seeing there. We've got these masks, these little blue things. We've got some clear masks for instructors who need to be able to show their mouths. We've got some other clear masks for students who may be working with faculty who have difficulty understanding without reading lips. So the instructor will have mask on, the students in the room will have masks on, the instructor will be on Zoom, the students in the room will be on Zoom, and many students will be remote on Zoom. So it's all working together so that everyone has access synchronously during the class time to the full learning experience. Now you'll see on the diagram there, we have our rooms marked off so that they do adhere to social distancing guidelines. And so all of our rooms will be marked like you see. Furniture is being removed to keep the occupancy down. All of our class enrollment sizes have been reduced to be COVID-19 compliant, meaning that there's enough room in the classroom for everybody to be socially distanced. In the event that your classroom is not large enough for the entire class to meet safely with social distancing, what you're going to see happening is the professor will break the class into groups. One group will meet mask to mask on one day. The other group will meet mask to mask on the next day. When you're not mask to mask, you have full access through the virtual remote access from your residence hall or from your home. We're doing that, and we're keeping groups the same rather than kind of rotating in other people, so that contact tracing can be easily and effectively done through those groups. So it's going to be a very different experience. There's no question about it. But what you're going to see is the faculty who are engaged the way they are always engaged, with close relationships with the students. They themselves will be adhering to all of our rules. They themselves will be visible through the remote instruction. We have Blackboard technology so people can write on their Zoom and it will be visible to the people in the classroom, probably better than ever because you don't have to be far from the board, but also visible to people on Zoom. Now, it is possible that the instructor will be remote. When that happens, it could be for a number of reasons. One is they have an underlying health condition so that we know from the beginning that instructors will not be physically present on the campus. If that's the case, we're informing students. We're just collecting all that information right now. Students will be informed so they're well aware that the class will be taught remotely. That being said, the classroom will still be a space for gathering for those students who are on campus. And that classroom will have what we're calling a tech TA, someone who is there to help with classroom management issues and to make certain that the technology is working if the instructor is in fact remote. Some instructors may just get up in the morning and have symptoms, and we've asked anyone who has symptoms not to be in the general campus population. So if that's the case, they'll send a message to their students. They will conduct their classes remotely using the same technology, and the classroom again will be available to students and the tech TA to hold their regular session. Students have the same flexibilities so that if a student gets up in the morning and doesn't feel well, they can attend their class, any one of their class sessions, fully remotely from the residence hall or wherever they happen to be. If they end up testing positive or being quarantined, because we have that access, they will always be able to engage in their work, their classroom experience, as well as their out-of-class learning. I showed one Zoom, and you can see from my source annotations, many of these are not our photos. I just used them from the internet. But as you see, we're doing a lot of work to make certain that other types of experiences, so for instance, music performance, that type, can still take place, but will be done through typically YouTube live session, and we'll work with our instructors as they go through that process. So we're doing everything we can to create as unique, as valuable an experience as possible. Again, our class sizes, we're not enrolling MOOCs here. These are not huge classes, but some of our rooms still make it difficult to fit all 12, 15, 18, 20 people in at once. So we will have that rotating cycle for those who wish to have a chance to be mask to mask. I have a hard time saying that. So let's talk a little bit about housing and dining. First, housing. All of our housing stock has been rearranged so that we can ensure that we have 6 feet between the living quarters of the students who share a room. The traditional halls are being set up to the extent possible with single rooms. Some students have requested a roommate in those incoming traditional halls. We're honoring that if possible. So for instance, students who are coming from the same town may want to room together. That's their choice, and we're going to honor it to the extent possible, but we're trying to provide in those traditional double-loaded corridor places a lower density by providing single rooms. We, of course, are restricting access to the buildings. What that means is in order to get into a building, a student has to be let in by a resident of that building. All right? The swipe cards will only work for the resident. We also have restrictions on no non-student guests are going to be allowed. Of course, when we have events such as Parents Weekend or we have move-in, there's going to be allowances for those types of situations. But in general, we do not want students hosting people from the community or their friends from another institution because we don't want to expose our community to an increased level of COVID as well as an increased possible set of strains of COVID. We will have travel restrictions. That's a bit strong for what we have. Students are going to be asked to sign a pledge, and the pledge is going to be about complying with all of the rules we have. But one of them is to restrict their travel to necessary travel. If students need to get food, go shopping, they have to pick up prescriptions, they have a medical appointment, of course, those things will all be allowed. We're just asking students not to go bumming around in town or go out to the various shopping centers in town unless they have a specific need that can't be met through our own college facilities. Of course, again, in the residence halls, they'll be required to wear a mask when in public areas, but not within the private rooms. We are being serious that there will not be any partying allowed. We've updated the permissible guests in each living area, in each residence hall, based on occupancy and 6-foot distancing requirements. However, outside we will allow groups of up to 10 as we can if you're outside and you're social distancing, but we're not going to be having any large parties. And if there are parties, the host will be asked to move to remote instruction for the rest of the semester to prevent that from happening again. We hope we don't have to get into that kind of enforcement. We hope our community comes together and protects one another, but we do have to let students know what the ramifications will be if you decide to host a party with a large gathering. We also have a specialized RA, residence assistant training program, so that we've trained all the resident assistants, RAs, on how they go about performing their regular duties now that we have the COVID policies in place. Let's see. As far as dining goes, there's going to be basically 3 places students can get food. The great room that you see in the picture, you can see the plexiglass, or you might be able to see it on the picture, is set up. The workers will serve students, and the students will be allowed to eat in the great room, which is a very, very large room. It's been reduced in capacity and it's been marked so that everyone will sit 6 feet apart. That's where the hot food and the most choices will be. We have 2 other areas on campus that are going to be kind of grab and go places, pre-packaged meals. There'll be things like sandwiches, salads, fruit, vegetables, sodas, those types of things. That's going to be available in the breakfast nook, which is also in our campus center right near the great room. We've set up the traffic in that area to make certain that students are coming in and going out in an orderly fashion so that we can maintain that 6-foot distancing. We also have Solomon's Kitchen, which used to be called the Pub. It's over there right by the residence halls, and they'll also have prepackaged grab and go meals. Students are allowed to come in and grab 1 meal, or they can take their entire day's supply of meals and take them back to their room, whatever their preference is. We also have a Get Food app that can be used for students to order so that they can pick up what they want from Solomon's Kitchen after hours. Of course, it's not unlimited, but it has extended hour access. That same app can also be used for students who are quarantining and isolating to help them order the food that will be delivered to them to prevent them from actually being out on the campus more broadly. So you can see that we have ample food available. We're going to have both hot meals and the grab to go. We'll have lots of fruit, vegetables, all the good stuff that we want our students to have access to. And again, everything's set up to promote social distancing, trafficking, as well as then those protective shields that you see, both face shields, face masks, but also these plexiglass shields that we've installed in our high service areas, basically. Athletics and recreation. You all know probably that we were sad to announce that we have canceled fall athletics. About a week after we did that, then the entire conference canceled athletics. So if you've been following this at Division III level, it's basically being canceled countrywide. Not everywhere, but almost everywhere. But that doesn't mean that our athletes won't be engaged. Coaches are developing plans right now to meet with their students, to practice or work out or train to the extent that they can, wearing a mask, being socially distant. They will also be engaging student athletes in leadership seminars, as well as inclusivity and diversity seminars and some others. The waterfront will still be open. Students can check out the equipment. They will be cleaned between every use by the staff, but students will also be provided wipes to wipe down before and after they use where the surfaces where they'll be touching things. As you can see in the closed to keep distance idea, that the arc will be open, but we've reduced capacity. We've distanced the equipment to make certain that people are maintaining 6-foot distances. And again, the arc and the waterfront will receive deep cleaning twice a day by our professional contract staff. Intramural sports will be available. Again, masks, social distancing. So it's going to be a limited type, but it will be there to help students recreate. And in fact, we're trying to build up our intramural sports options because we anticipate with the limited access to the arc, reduced capacity, and no athletic events that we may see increased interest there. There will be equipment checkout from the arc. Again, students can check out equipment. They can use it outside. These are all things, from Frisbees to all kinds of things that people can use. And again, they'll be deep cleaned between uses, but students will also be given individual cleaning materials to clean before and after their use. The access to our facilities to the extent allowable by law. So the ARC, for instance, is limited only to students and staff. Our external community members are not allowed to use it. We are not renting the facility as we often do for use of the swimming pool and other things. And so it'll basically be limited to college use. Same thing with the waterfront to the extent we have control. The waterfront is a public property. So some public use will be available, but they will not be allowed to rent to check out the equipment like the sailboats or the paddle boards or any of that kind of thing. So we're attempting our ability within the law to limit access to only people in our immediate community. No showers. Well, of course, that doesn't mean in the residence halls, but what it means is if you have a practice, if you're going to use the arc or whatever, the showers will not be available. You'll be expected to show up in the gear appropriate for whatever your activity is. And then to shower, you'll go back and use your existing shower in your own residence halls. Again, trying to limit community spread of any of the virus. So now I'm going to turn it over again to questions and, as I guess tongue in cheek say here, and some answers. I can't pretend to have all the answers. I have some people on the webinar with me today who might be able to provide answers. But if we can't answer them, we are going to have this recorded. The question and answer session is going to be recorded, and we'll get those questions and answers out there onto our frequently asked questions list, out on our COVID site, which is volumes of questions and answers that I hope you'll find useful. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, I think. we'll see what happens. And come back over, and I'll just sit here and try to answer questions as they come up. I believe Jordan is going to be helping me field the
Right.
questions.
That is
Um,
correct.
so I'll do my best, folks.
All right. So the first question that we have is, can you please let us know when students can expect to have housing confirmation?
Housing what? I'm sorry, Jordan.
Housing confirmation.
Yeah, those should be going out very soon. I think this week. I don't know. Is Derek on the call?
I did not see him yet.
Okay.
He may be in
So
there.
David, I believe we're finalizing those assignments and based on the
Yes.
survey.
Yes, thank you all for submitting the student survey. We had a tremendous response to that, and it's much appreciated for our planning purposes. We are completing the housing assignment process, and housing assignments will go out tomorrow.
All right. So are you all able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay, cool. I had to move the microphone a little bit
Probably
closer.
a factor of my age more than your
No.
volume.
So there is a follow-up to that question, and it says, housing priorities for students. So it says, what about housing priorities for students taking online classes this semester? So that was the second part to the first question that I just asked.
Sure. So I'm assuming that means that if it's possible and if there's interest for the student to come back in the spring, what sort of priority will they have? Ultimately, it will depend on the capacity we have available on campus, given the variables of the situation as they exist at that time. Right now, and I know this was another question, that we have about 1,500 spaces on campus, and we expect to house about 1,000. So our housing capacity has been reduced to about 2/3, with the priority given to as many singles as possible in our traditional residence halls, which are and when I say traditional, I mean the hallways with double loaded, 2 students in a room sharing a common bathroom. So we've done everything possible to bring down those capacities significantly. But ultimately, given our capacity that we have to house 1,500 students, if it is possible, given the circumstances, for us to house more students on campus beginning in the spring and the following year, then we will do so. But it's a hard question to answer right now. There are just so many variables in place.
Gotcha. All right. Next question says, I am most concerned about sharing small dorm rooms. What precautions are being taken?
Yeah, so as we talked about, we're using for the most densely populated halls, those traditional double-loaded corridors. We're attempting to give individual students their individual rooms. For the other rooms, we've made certain that the furniture all can adhere to 6-foot distancing policies, so that there's a couple of rooms in the Lewis Quad, I believe it is, that don't quite meet that, but we've staggered them, and the health department has approved that as a means of tail to head sleeping, which will allow them that 6-foot distance. So all the spaces are being cleaned. We are, of course, developing all of the social distancing signage that will be available. So we're hoping that students will adhere to social distancing even within their own residence. Townhouses and those types, there's common areas. Those common areas are going to need to be self-policed, so to speak, by the students themselves. And we are encouraging them to wear masks when they're not in their room. In the residence halls that have common spaces, masks will be required. But in town halls, of course, that's a limited community, and they're going to have to develop their own compliance measures.
Gotcha. All right. So the question that is asked after that is, how will students get their textbooks, and how do remote students get textbooks?
So we have the textbook process for picking up your textbook is going to have extended hours. It's also going to have the social distancing line. So students will be able to get their textbooks from the bookstore. Students who wish to go fully remote will need to contact the bookstore, and I believe, David, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we'll send them the books, or assuming that I think that's the way we're gonna do it.
Yeah, that is my understanding as well. And my apologies for not being more declarative in this, but that we'll be working, the student would work with the bookstore to secure the books and then have them sent to their home.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
All right. So we talked about an app that would be used earlier to kind of go over some symptoms that students may or may not have. There was a question about the name of that app. What is it called, and when is that, and how is that going to be introduced to students?
So it's an app that comes from a company called Qualtrics. They're, in my mind at least, I'm probably selling them short, they're a survey type software provider. So David, do you know if there are any specific download requirements for the phones?
So at this point, so the app itself is going to be called SMCM Wellness. Students will fill it out, complete it on a daily basis. At this point, I've yet to see the app. And I will expect to see it in the next couple of days, and I'd be able to answer that question, more completely. But students will be, obviously, this will be something that students can easily have on their phones or on their laptops, similar to other surveys that in the survey that they received for fall, they'll easily be able to fill it out on a daily basis, either on their phone or on their computer. So I'd love to be, love to be able to more visually describe it to you, but
yeah, it's being installed and tested as we speak. So
yes.
Awesome. All right, one moment, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm having a technical glitch. But there was a follow-up question that I wanted to kind of go on for the next question. So the first question was about books, and then the second one was related to that. So should students start ordering books now online so that they will have them when they arrive?
yeah, that's an option available to students at all times, even outside of these strange times we're in right now. Yeah, they can do that. They can also get them from the bookstore. So either option is available, and it's a family preference, really.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. COVID testing sites are all currently booked. Having trouble getting nasal swab tests where results will be back in time for August 15th. And that was the question.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we're working with the St. Mary's County Public Health Department. They've identified places in every district, in public health district in the state. Some of those are overloaded. So our director of our wellness center, so I know you received an email to make certain you go out and get tested. If you're having trouble, please contact the wellness center. They're working with individual students to help them identify the closest place that has capacity and doesn't require a script and so forth. So yeah, please work with the wellness center. Their contact information is in that email.
Gotcha. Do commuter students need a negative COVID test?
No, no. They were only testing, and again, this is following the St. Mary's County Health Department model. We're only doing a baseline test for those people who will be residential on campus. For the most part, that's residential students. We do have some staff and visitors who are residential as well, and they'll be going through the testing protocol as well. But it is not required for commuter students.
Gotcha. Another housing question is, what is the roommate supposed to do during quarantine in place?
So the quarantine in place part of the process is, you've had symptoms, you've been tested, the test results haven't come back yet. So again, for people who live in a single, no issues. If you're in a larger space, what we're asking you to do is to simply try to avoid contact with your roommates. Again, you'll have 6 feet area. So my recommendation to students would be one student should stay in the room when they're not sleeping. The other student could have then access to the campus and to the shared areas within that residence. Then when they go and sleep, they'll again still be able to maintain that 6-foot distance. So within the residence itself, it's going to have to be a partnership working with all of your flatmates, if you will, and helping to make certain that people understand, look, I've been tested, I'm waiting for the results, and so that person should be able to keep themselves away from the others.
And how close to arrival should the test be conducted?
Yeah, well, that's the $64,000 question. Wasn't that a show or something like that? Yeah. So what we're asking for is that the test results indicate that you were tested within 7 days of coming to campus. You know, David, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe we're going to be as flexible as possible there. Obviously, if you got tested a month ago, that's not going to be sufficient. But, you know, if you were at 8 or 9 days out, you got tested, the results came back, I'm sure we can figure out a way to work with people.
Mike, that's absolutely the case. The 7 to 10 day window really was chosen based on recommendation from the health department about how long it might take to get test results. Ideally, we would like the test results as close to the start of the semester and move in as possible, and so the 7 to 10 day window was chosen to be able to get those in that period of time. So if somebody has had a test that was within the last couple of days, I think that's reasonable. But this is where I really encourage you, if you're having trouble to accessing a test, to be in touch with Lori Scher in the Health and Wellness Center. She's working with a number of families right now to access and secure testing when they've been having trouble accessing something in their community.
Yeah, and she's also aware of what the labs that are being used by these facilities and how much the delay is. So she's trying to match people up with the best option available.
So another test question that they have is, how current does the test be? If you've taken the test recently, or if you've taken the test, you know, a few months ago, how current does it have to be?
Yeah, we want it as recent as possible. Again, 7 to 10 day window. But if you're having trouble, work with Lori. She'll get you arranged, and then certainly whatever we do through Lori will be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Does a quarantine refer to just 14 days, or will different times be created to fit different scenarios?
So it depends, right? If you're quarantined because we're waiting for the test results to come back, then once the results come back, we can lift the quarantine or act appropriately. If you're being quarantined because, for instance, you had the COVID actually positive, and so now you're being quarantined for those 14 days, the last 3 of which then need to be 3 days without fever, with no fever reducing medicine. That's the best practice that we've received from the health department. So it depends a little bit on the situation, but the idea being we want to make certain that we don't send people out into our communities spreading the virus, so that the quarantine period will be sufficiently driven really by the health department. They're the ones recommending the timings.
Mike, I'd just like to add, each student, if a student tests positive, they are assigned a caseworker within the health department who will be monitoring them and on a daily basis. There was also a question later on, I'm trying to help you out here, I guess, Jordan, was that if a student tests positive, do they have to quarantine at the institution, or can they go home? They can, in fact, go home if that is the case, and receive their care and kind of see themselves through this at home rather than staying on campus. But they would have to be asymptomatic for the same period that Mike talked about in order for the student to return.
Thank you for that. All right, so are faculty members choosing to be remote without symptoms and being compromised just as a matter of personal choice, question mark?
Thank you. That's a good question. So we've gone back and forth on this, and it's been in conversations with a number of people. So the way it's going to work right now is there are some faculty. So if you're over the age of 65 or you have this set of underlying health conditions, if they can document that, then they will be allowed to work remotely for this semester. All right. If they choose to teach their classes remotely because of those conditions, they will stay off campus for the entire semester. They'll basically work remotely. If a faculty member has some childcare issues, right? And as you all know, probably the public school systems are varied in their approach. Most of them are starting remote and then going to a partial week kind of thing. So they're gonna, if you have childcare issues, then faculty are gonna be allowed to teach remote during the times when they can't arrange for a partner to take over the childcare, or the school is closed, or whatever that might be. We also have people who take care of others. So they themselves are perhaps under 65, do not have underlying health conditions, but they live with parents who are elderly or have underlying health conditions. Such individuals are allowed to ask to be given remote work, and they will be honored as well. What we're not doing is basically saying that it's up to the faculty member how they feel. I don't mean physically, but just what their wishes are. We're offering, the students want a mask to mask experience. We're trying to offer that as a residential college. We want to honor all faculty who have any need to be, have a heightened sensitivity. But in general, all those requests either come through human resources, which will be verified for health reasons, or health people in your office, or excuse me, your home, or childcare issues. The other is they come to me with other types of things that aren't sufficient documentation. But you know, I don't live with my parents, but I go every weekend and provide care for them. Okay, okay, it may not be living with you, but you still should have the right to do remote. So it's basically on an approval basis. We're being as lenient as possible. And in fact, I think almost every request that has come in, we've been able to approve. And I think we're looking at maybe 1 out of 5 faculty members might be needing to be remote. But again, on an individual day, they could wake up, not feel well. We ask them to stay home and teach remotely that day.
Thank you. Will a new student be able to have a family member help them move in on move-in day?
Yes, we're going to have move-in, of course, the no visitor idea. That won't be in place during move-in. We have a staggered move-in times so that we can keep the density of people down. We're asking people to wear masks when they assist with move-in, but family members will be able to help their student move in.
How will the kids in the classroom see the kids who are on Zoom? Will there be a large monitor in each classroom, or will they have to be on their own computers within the classroom?
Yeah, the intent is that they'll be on their own computers. So they'll be sitting in a room with Zoom, whatever their technology is, sitting there, so that remote students will see all the students, whether you're in the classroom or you're remote. The students in the classroom will see all students. Everybody will see the professor. Professor doesn't have to use the whiteboard in the room. They have whiteboard technology to make certain that it's visible to everyone. So in many ways, there are some attractive features to this model of instruction. The idea of a large monitor is great, but that, again, if you have to sit quite a ways from it, it makes it difficult for you to be able to see the details. So if students don't have their technology, we're asking them to reach out. A number of this has already happened. And we're providing, to the extent possible, technology to every student to allow them to be able to participate fully in this hybrid instructional model.
All right. And are parents able to visit their student and deliver supplies?
That's a very good question. I'm certain that David might have the answer.
So the answer to that would be yes, parents can visit the student to deliver supplies. However, it's going to be important to keep in mind the context of that sort of delivery. It would need to be sort of a quick delivery, more of a drop-off, if you will, than a time to visit, unless you sort of, perhaps there's a visit outside, socially distance, to sort of, to protect everyone involved. But, we hope that that is minimized as much as possible. But yes, parents will be able to deliver supplies over the course of the semester.
All right. Can we change the meal plan if students are discouraged from having visitors? Also, will the fee for room and board be decreased since students will not return after November?
So can you change your meal plan? Yes, there's a window that will allow you to change that once you've gained some experience with what the options are available on campus. The room and board is for an entire semester's length. We've shifted it earlier, as you know, to start August 17th. Students will arrive the 15th to the 16th. And so you're still gaining access to a full semester's worth of residence hall access. We are moving the final exams onto a remote platform. That's largely being done to ensure that we can have as much mask to mask instruction time as possible within our semester, and then make certain that students are able to get home for the holidays and then stay there and not have to come back after they've been around people that they haven't been around for some time.
So, thank you. All right, so I'm actually going to get to a question that is in the chat, so that I'm not, bouncing back and forth. But if masks are required in all public places and spaces, is it possible to walk alone in places that aren't densely populated, etc., the woods, without a mask?
Yeah. So the policy as it is right now is that if you're outdoors, you should be wearing a mask. That being said, look, if you're isolated by yourself, I don't, David, again, you can yell at me if I'm giving the wrong answer here, but it's not we're not trying to lock people down. We're trying to make certain our community stays safe. So if you're not around anybody and you want to go for a walk in the woods and you want to breathe fresh air without a mask, I think that's fine.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
If there was a surge in cases around the area, or for whatever similar reason, a residential student was no longer comfortable with staying on campus, would they be able to move out without any form of financial, I'm sorry, let me stop. Would they be able to move out with any form of financial compensation regarding the rest of the semester's meal plan and rooming payment?
Good question. Thank you. As you know, we worked very hard to make certain that in the spring, when all this started, that we were able to give back prorated refunds for meal plans and housing and so forth. We're going to try to follow the same model in that if the college is unable to provide the housing meal plan, then we will be issuing prorated refunds for those things. If, however, it's a student choice, then they'll be adhering to our normal refund cycle, which is kind of it increments through to from a nearly full refund down to a zero after some amount of time. So if it's student choice, then they'll follow our normal process. If it's college choice, we will then issue prorated refunds for room and board.
Are students discouraged from traveling home for a weekend or to other campuses to visit? Can students go home on the weekend?
They are discouraged from going home on the weekends as well as going to other campuses. All travel off campus is meant to be necessity only. Medical appointments, pick up prescriptions, maybe you've got to get some supplies you can't get on campus, whatever it might be. We do not want students going off into other communities where there may be increased risk and then bringing that risk back to our community. Again, I referred to it as travel restrictions. We're expecting students to adhere to this. Policing is always difficult, right? If a student has a car, okay, well, it's going to be hard to, to keep track of that. But we're asking students, again, with the St. Mary's Way, to to have the care to take care of both themselves, but the others in our community. We all want a residential experience. We all want to be able to see each other, our faculty, our staff, and the only way that's going to be happening is if we all take care of one another. You know, I wouldn't want to be that student who decides to do something that brings the virus into the community and it spreads to the point that we have to actually close down. That's going to ruin the experience for everybody. And we're just asking all of our community to care for one another and to take on that level of social responsibility.
And will there be shuttles into town on the weekends?
No, there won't be shuttles into town on weekends because we are attempting to keep that limited to need only. We will have deliveries from partners in the community, Walmart and so forth. And so I don't believe we're going to run our normal kind of shuttle experience because we don't want to encourage that off-campus commuting.
I'd just also like to add that we are expanding the type of sundry and dry goods that are available on campus so that way students have less of a need to go off to pick up those sorts of supplies.
And of course, we'll have the ordering, and they can have their information, the things they need, delivered to the student center, and they can pick it up there. So should have every option to not have to go off campus. But I understand medical appointments, those kinds of things.
If a student requested and paid for a two-person room and is assigned to a single, will additional fees apply?
No, that's a college choice, it's college decision. And so you signed up for whatever room housing you signed up for, you'll be charged that rate. So, you know, if we move you to a more expensive option because we need to do it, we're not going to charge the family for that.
All right. So now we have a question about non-residential students. The travel restrictions for on-campus students is a good idea. However, on-campus students will be exposed to commuter students who live off-campus. Are there any restrictions there?
Again, we're asking off-campus students to limit their travel beyond coming to campus and back, or potentially work. That's another reason people may need to travel. And then, of course, once that commuter comes back onto our campus, they'll be following, wearing the mask, social distancing, sanitizing. And so it's a combination of asking them to limit the travel from their home or wherever they're living to the college, keeping that at the, again, only essential travel outside of that. And when they're in the community, they will follow all the same rules as the rest of us to keep the spread from happening.
And I'd also just like to add that commuter students will also be required to be submitting their daily symptom checks as well.
As will faculty and staff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we often, you know, very few of us live on campus.
Right. Right. What about dorm bathrooms? How will they be cleaned and managed? What precautions are being taken for the community bathrooms in the residence halls?
So again, there we talked earlier about every public space will be receive deep cleaning twice a day, and that we've contracted with a cleaning service. You know, they use all the CDC and OSHA recommended chemicals and so forth for their cleaning. In the actual facilities, the bathroom facilities, those are going to be cleaned on an increased cycle. It'll be more than twice a day, right? And students will be provided, of course, their own sanitizing materials, gloves, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, travel to and into the restrooms should be safe as well.
And on the same question of gloves, there was a question that was in the chat earlier that said, will gloves be required for the move-in process?
No, I don't believe gloves are being required. David, am I correct?
You are correct. Staff will be wearing gloves, and the college will be providing hand sanitizer for folks who are assisting with the move-in process. And of course, when the student picks up their PPE kit, it will have gloves in it if they would like to wear them. But I've been assured that there will be a great deal of hand sanitizer for folks assisting with move-in.
All right. So, what are the plans to help build the community with new freshmen students while keeping them safe/socially distanced? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great question. You know, part of the St. Mary's advantage is that we get a very tight-knit, close community. Well, obviously, the close part isn't going to be as physical as it normally is. So we still are offering our seminar course, our first year seminar course, which is a small class that does a lot of kind of getting to know one another virtually, but in the classroom with social distancing as well. We're also making certain that our clubs can operate. Again, they have to be doing that with social distancing rules in place, wearing masks, staying 6 feet apart, and so forth. So it's not going to be quite as isolating as it sounds. You know, if you have a small group, less than 10, you can get together, wear your masks, stay 6 feet apart, and be able to get to know your classmates. Athletics, again, is also going through with some team building type activities for the teams to help them reach out and serve the community. And I know that our residence life is also looking at different ways of being able to help students get to know one another, feel comfortable around one another, but still adhere to all of our social distancing guidelines.
Awesome. All right. So, let me just do a quick time check. We may have a little bit of time for more questions, but Mike, how are you doing? What time are
I'm
you
fine.
missing?
I'll stay as long as you need me.
Okay. So we won't be able to get to all of the questions, but we will do our best. So another question that we have on the list, are microwaves allowed in dorm rooms?
David? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
So microwaves are not allowed in the dorm rooms, and this is really due to power limitations within the residence halls. That being said, there are microwaves in each residence hall for students to use. Students may have keep refrigerators in their room.
Awesome. Are the breakfast nook in Solomon's Kitchen part of their meal plan?
Yes.
Okay. Can you use the Get Food app if you have a limited meal plan or no meal plan?
I don't know how, forgive me, I don't,
Hmm.
I know the answer is going to be yes, because whether you have a meal plan or not, you may be in a quarantine or isolation
Hmm.
situation. I don't know in general how they will do the financial transaction if there is one needed. My guess is that the app will handle that, but I'm going to have to, unless David, you know, I'm going to have to leave that one hanging. But you're not being charged for the app or for its use. You'd be charged only for the food if it wasn't covered by your plan. And since we have to have access for every student, we'll figure that out. I just don't know what the payment process is.
And will the pool be open for athletic and recreational use?
The pool will be open, you know, athletic, it's going to be open to students if, you know, there are, you know, swim teams want to do some type of practice and thing. Again, social distancing, all of those things will have to be in place. Part of the thing with athletics is we don't want competition, right? So that you're bringing people from two different campuses together in an environment where there's likely to be exchange. So that's been the primary reason for no athletic events. But the practices will still be happening. Pool will be open for recreation, again, for our own college community.
All right. And when will final roommate assignments go out?
Tomorrow, I believe. Wasn't that the answer, David?
All right. Okay, well, I think that we have ran out of time. What I will do is make sure that we drop all of our contact information inside of the chat. So if you have any additional questions, definitely reach out to us. Thank you all so much for being a part of this and presenting your questions. We are looking forward to answering them and giving you as much context as we possibly can. There's also a significant update that we have, which is our reopening page that was brought up earlier. A lot of great information on there. If you actually go to the bottom of that page, there is a submit a question tab. So all of the questions that you have regarding, move-in instruction is on that page, and your questions will be answered in a timely manner. So definitely check that out, and I will actually drop the URL to that within the chat. So save that tab. There's a lot of great contact information that is available on there. Did you have any other closing remarks, Mike, or are we all set?
Yeah, please, and David may as well. But I hope what you've heard today tells you that we're taking this very seriously. We want everyone to be safe. We're going to do everything we can to keep people safe. There's some things that are unknown, right? Everything's changing so quickly in our world today. But we're doing everything we can to help students have a great experience. Even our student athletes who may not be able to compete, but they'll still be able to bond as teams. They'll also be able to hone their skills and so forth. So all elements of our community are going to be supported to the best of our ability. We're all in this together. That's faculty, staff, students, families, all of us. And we very much appreciate and respect the trust that parents are putting in us when they send their son or daughter to the college. My son is a student here and will be again in the residence halls. So it's personal for me in that sense, but it's personal for all of us. So please know we're doing our best. We're going to get your questions answered out on that website. And when you need information, call us. Be patient with us, right? We're all finding our way, but we're going to do it with the error on the side of caution and safety. David, do you want to wrap up?
Need to get off mute first. Mike, that was very well put, and I would only really echo that 1000%. I do want to appreciate everyone's participation in today's webinar, and next week we will be talking more about student life and student affairs for the fall. So I encourage those of you with those questions to make sure that you participate in that event. I think we'll be able to add a lot more information regarding what will student life and student activities look like. We will have our Dean of Students as well as a number of his staff on the webinar, and they'll be talked through some of their plans as we've got students and we understand this on-campus commuting and remote. And our intention is to be building a strong community as best as we can in these times in the St. Mary's way. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. So again, appreciate everyone for being here. This is being recorded and will be available in the near future. So any questions about that, it will be provided for you all. All right. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you for being here.